Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity, community service, volunteering, and just spreading positivity. We're all about positive vibes here on the show. And I've got a very special guest with me today, this week. He is, oh my gosh, he's wrestled for so many companies. Wrestled for WWE, Impact, NWA, former television champion, the one and only Elijah Burke, the Pope. Welcome.
What's up, Daddy? So good. So grateful to be here with you, Stanley. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to do exactly what you opened up about, things that you just mentioned, what we do inside, what we do outside. And I know we're going to cover all that. So I'm just going to let you do your thing, my brother.
Sure. All righty. So you're from Jacksonville, Florida. Tell me about your upbringing and childhood.
Well, in Jacksonville, certainly back when I was coming up, there wasn't a lot of things necessarily that was going on. A lot of things that you can do around that time. We had the Gator Bowl, we had Florida, Georgia. That's about it. And we had the Coliseum. And every now and then we'd be lucky enough to get some entertainment that was entertaining, at least for your boy, in that area. Me being the baby of five other siblings, I got a chance to do a lot. I got a chance to see a lot. I got a chance to learn a lot. Partook in a lot of activities outside of the home life. You know, whether that was playing basketball, uh, for the PAL, or whether that was on a little football team, doing the YMCA teams and all of that. So pretty active as a young man, as a kid. And somewhere along the way, which I know you're gonna touch on, your boy found wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you were very into sports, very athletic growing up, participated in a lot of different activities. What was it about professional wrestling that got you hooked?
Well, it was a staple in our home on Saturday mornings. And then later, obviously, at the 6:05 when, that came on. Um, my dad, man, I was fortunate enough to grow up um, in a stable environment with my dad and my mom, and the old classic conventional household where dad, worked, mom cooked, mom worked too, but mom would be a wife, like so many have a hard time doing today. That's just from my own personal perspective, obviously. But yeah, so dad would always have that world class championship wrestling, NWA, world championship wrestling. All of those will air sometimes not simultaneously, but one behind the
I
other. Okay.
gotcha.
So so we would get the 9:05 a.m. in the morning on WTBS, and then we'll be lucky enough at noon. Here comes World Class Championship Wrestling. So my dad is sitting in the recliner. My dad is, regardless what we're doing, he's watching that wrestling, and so oftentimes you sit down and watch it with him. And that was my introduction to wrestling, and that's my whole household. I got four older brothers, one sister, four older brothers, and they were all into it too. So me being the baby, of course I'm gonna follow along. I just fell in love with it.
I just love to hear that, man. Just you get invested in the characters and the storylines and the action. You're just right there. Who were like some of your favorites growing up to
Ooh,
watch?
yeah, and before I answer that, it's just like you said previously about the characters and the storylines. Well, I literally just had a flashback. You know, uh, that to the 80s cartoons. Saturday mornings we're up and you got the Smurfs and you got a show called The Biscuits. All of these would come on. These were little dogs, by the way, and the Gummy Bears. All of these would come on prior to the 9:05, or from 7 to 8, and then of course 9 o'clock. You still got the cartoon hour or block. So, but we switch over and we're watching that wrestling, and then after wrestling is done, you go back to another. Whether it's He-Man and She-Ra that's airing 30 minutes behind one another, and then here comes 12 o'clock. You got the World Class Championship Wrestling that's airing from Texas. But when you talk about my favorites, man, yeah, of course, y'all know my age, so I'm dating myself. But when you talk about what got your boy, who hooked your boy, uh, obviously, I think everybody knows when it comes to Elijah Burke, and when it comes specifically to both Elijah Burke and the Pope. Well, you got to talk about Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and obviously Ric Flair as well.
Oh yeah.
It was at that moment I'll never forget. You ever saw? I don't know how old you are, Stanley, but have you ever? You should. I'm a horror buff. I love horror movies, but everybody should know the story of Poltergeist. If you've never
Mm.
seen Poltergeist, I'm upset. But nonetheless, Poltergeist is a it's one of the most scariest paranormal um, films ever created. And as much so that there's a poltergeist curse because it was dealing in paranormal activity, which a lot of the movies afterwards would touch on. But people were dying on set. The director dies, the star child dies, and the list goes on. And so they called it a poltergeist curse. But we I have no idea why I just went to that story. Oftentimes I go in the woods. I don't forgot. I can't find my way back out. I don't forgot where I was going. But oh, there it is. Dusty Rhodes. So Dusty is on screen, on the television screen. And the reason I brought up Poltergeist is because in this horror film, the 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 spirits, the paranormal activity that's taking place has drawn this little girl to the television screen. Have you ever seen the old school television screens when
Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing when there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing on it
Yeah,
and
like
you
like static.
yeah.
Like
So
static.
it draws her to the screen and she's reaching out and she's touching it. And so the point of that story is to say that when Dusty Rhodes was on television and he was saying, my hand, reaching out right now, touching your hand, brother, I was up to that screen touching his hand. So there you go. So that's had to set that up for you.
That's cool, man. That's awesome. What got you like thinking like, okay, how do I get involved with this?
That,
This is what I want to do.
that was never, I don't think that was ever a thought then. I mean, much like many kids, we went outside. They call it backyard now, but we went outside in the front yard and, in the midst of our playing dodgeball or, kickball, sometimes brawls, would break out. And I'm not talking about the real brawls of fighting because I did plenty of that as a kid, obviously. But I'm just talking about sometimes we would just have fun out there. And my goodness, don't let it discard it as looking back, as horrible as it may be right now, but don't think about a discarded mattress that's been put on side of the road. you know, Somebody got a new mattress for their bed, so the over goes out, and we're out there, we're just wrestling on it, or doing what we think is wrestling.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of what got me hooked. I remember uh, one time my mother, she out of the blue, man, she knew how much I love wrestling. She took the time because we used to make a lot of the older guys, and other people. They would make cardboard wrestling belts,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom decided to make me one day. I remember going. into the house and going into the kitchen, and she was just finishing it. She had cut the cardboard. She put aluminum foil around it, all the way around it. She had the red, white, and blue Dusty Rose on it. You know, the American Dream Dusty Rose. And when I went outside, ran outside with that belt, I cannot tell you how many of my friends were just in awe. And then I remember I wrestled this my older friend who was a neighbor, obviously down. I wrestled the older friend, and he literally shoot pinned me to take my belt, and I started crying like, "What are you doing? You know,
Uh,
like that's mine." And he wasn't supposed to do that, but he did, the bastard.
oh man, that's like one of your first injuries.
Yeah, I cried about it. He gave it back, but
Uh,
still,
yeah,
everybody wanted that title. Is my point.
yeah. Wow. And it was a dream come true. Later on, you start thinking like you want to get involved with this and want to do this. What can you tell me about like the training process and when you first started going to like wrestling school?
Well, let me and I appreciate uh your background here. But obviously going up through high school, I started boxing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I graduated from high school. I went straight into law enforcement, and as a result of being in law enforcement, there's these events that they will often do called the Guns and Hoses. That's where guns represents the police, hoses represents the firemen, and so it was a boxing event, and I was interested in partaking in it. So I started doing tough man. I did my first tough man competition as a trainer. I was training, and I had like these trainers that will actually train me in amateur boxing. And so, therefore, after doing the PAL and being the police athletic lead for months, I wanted to go parlay my skills into actual competition. And so I signed up for tough man competitions and to hone my craft, to become sharp and be ready for when I got in front of, thousands of people. And in doing so, it was an entertaining um, method in which I could fulfill the joy of entertaining people. I tell people to this day, I didn't take joy in knocking out people. I didn't take joy in getting hit. I was going out there to entertain. That's what I wanted to do, to be a a showstopper, a crowd pleaser. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. But I had a good friend of mine. His name was Joe, and he was a 300-pound, 18 shoe wearing, real life, walking, talking, fire breathing, whiskey drinking redneck.
Oh
And
man.
but me and him had hit off such a friendship that we were best friends, and we both loved wrestling. And so we always talked about getting into wrestling. How are we going to do it? What's going to happen? This, that, and the other. So one day we were at the Coliseum after a Nitro, and we started that crazy wrestling outside while we were waiting on the guys to leave. This guy comes by and he's like, "Hey, are you guys workers?" And we're like, "What? Yeah, we work. I work." He's like, "No, you're gonna BS me." Anyway, some BS wannabe promoter thought we were wrestlers and invited us to one of his training camps, or which happened to be open ring in his backyard. Dude, I don't think I've ever told this story, so you're getting something new. Okay,
Exclusive.
exclusive open ring in his backyard. That is I don't know where he got the ring from. It's horrible. It's terrible. The wood is sticking up, and it's in his not his backyard, but his elderly mom's trailer backyard, single wide at that, and she's the commissioner. So we're out there. We're out there helping, trying to get the ropes together. This is my first experience, I promise you. We're out there trying to, get this ring good condition, I guess, so that we can get in it. And somebody happened to sit on his elderly mom's table, and it kind of bent, broke a little bit, the leg. She comes out and she looks and she goes, I don't curse, but she goes, bam, you broke my table. And all of a sudden, this wannabe, I'm in the woods, but I'll come out. This guy goes, all right, guys. Mom says, mom says the show is the practice is over. You know, and mom's the commissioner. So, and I'll never forget that story. I put it in the book one day.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm booking people into the jails. Basically, long story short, uh, intake in the Duval County Jail was crowded. There was a slow process. There was a wait. I somehow through the manifestation, because me and my friend talked about going to Dory Funk's Funkin' Conservatory in Ocala, and lo and behold, Stanley, that never happened. You're trying to do something together, and sometimes you just can't wait on people, or
Right.
you'll be waiting forever. But through manifestation, I went and opened up the computer at the Duval County Jail. I don't know how. I don't know why. We just did get updated systems, but you couldn't do personal searches or anything. That was forbidden, even though you could, but it was forbidden. But I opened up the computer as I'm waiting, and across the top of the screen, Stanley, it says first ever WWE developmental tryout at Ohio Valley Wrestling. And that's how it all started. I printed it out immediately.
Unbelievable. I mean, it sounds like, working for a prison is just tough. It's hard.
Well, I mean, that wasn't a prison, and prison and jails are two different things.
Or jail, I should say.
I can only imagine that prison, what prison is. I mean, I can't imagine. I know. So I know what those guys go through in the prison, but working in the jail, and even working outside of the jail as an as a on duty civilian officer, not civilian, but you know what I'm saying, officer, police officer. Um, it's hard. Period. It's hard everywhere, because you're dealing with criminals.
Mm-hmm. Was there like any period of time where somebody was trying to fight you off, or
knocked him out, knocked
really?
him out, and went on the investigation. Again, I was already a boxer.
Yeah.
And this happened in the jail, not outside the jail. I was getting off of a staff elevator, and someone was getting off the inmate elevator, and I think I had some food in my hand, and the guy saw me, and he went into straight Bruce Leroy mode, and he was like, oh, and he just came after me, throwing his, and without time to react, I just knocked him out and handcuffed him. One punch, put him in handcuffs. There was another officer that was in what we call a pod. That's the secured location. Never came out to help me. I don't know if he did radio it, but he's not supposed to leave anyways. But he did radio it, and that was it. And then all of us, like with so many times, anything involving an officer, it got to be investigated now, and yeah.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Indeed, and I did, and I'll continue to.
You applied to try out for developmental, and this was when Cornette was still working there at the time, Jim Cornette.
Thank God for Cornette. I went there. I was out of all of these people, out of thousands of people that submitted their pictures, their story, and paid $1,000. They chose only 50 of us. That was going to be the number 50, and so I was one that was selected. And just to be clear, guys, when I say $1,000 or whatnot, well, that covered your room and board and the hotels and all that stuff. All that was covered. So they took care of us in that regard. And I took 2 weeks off after the fact that Jim Cornette called me when me and my girl at the time, one of my former future baby mamas, yeah, say that 5 times fast, we're sitting on the dock of the bay, literally in my Camaro, um, and we done dozed off. You know, it's a beautiful day. The windows are down. The radio is playing, and all of a sudden, I get a phone call, and I'm a little hazy. I'm a little dazed, startled, whatever. I open the phone. I listen. That's right. It was flip phones back then. So I open the phone up, answer it, and all of a sudden I hear, Elijah, it's Jim Cornette. Can you hear me? And I'm like, hello? Elijah, it's Jim Cornette. Get to a better place so I can call you back. I want to talk to you. So after the phone hangs up, I look and I'm kind of in disbelief. Like, am I dreaming or did Jim Cornette just call me? And so I get out the car and I stand on the dock of the bay. And sure enough, he calls me right back. Elijah, can you hear me? I'm like, hey, Jim. Yes, sir. He's like, hey, listen, you don't know a headlock from a wrist lock. You don't know how to do this, do that. But basically, so I'm not doing my worst Jim Cornette impression right now. He tells me that out of a lot of people that came, I got something. I look like something. I didn't submit a picture that showed me at 230 pounds pure muscle, and then when they showed up, they looked like Homer Simpson. And I promise, there's this one guy. He even showed me. I'll never forget the guy because they were submitting old pictures of themselves. But he told me basically that I had what couldn't be taught, and that was called it. He said you have it. You have a something about you that, and he says you because you don't know anything, you're trainable. You're not going to be hard to train, teach. And he basically said, I know you're an officer. I know you got a good career. But if you come back here, I can't guarantee you a contract. But if you come back here and train, I can I can almost guarantee you a contract. Because he said you got it. And so about 6, 7 months later, my 50th year anniversary with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, I put in my papers and I went to Louisville, Kentucky. I moved to Louisville, Kentucky to train at OVW without any guarantee except Jim Cornette's words.
That's so awesome. So you go to Kentucky. You go to Kentucky, and they put you through the ringer in those training camps. I mean, explain the training process at OVW, and who were some of the people that you got to meet while you were there?
One of the first people that I got in the ring with, believe it or not, was the fallen angel, Christopher Daniels. He called me in the ring. Somebody who, and I used to run when I used to run the ropes. I used to, I was a boxer, so I'm taking like 8 steps, just to eight small steps to run the ropes, from one side of the ring to the other. But Chris got in the ring with me. He saw something and he said, "Come here." I'm like, "Me?" Like, "Yeah, come on." I'm like, "Bro, I'm not." He's like, "I got you. Don't worry about it." And so Christopher was there, Nick Eugene Dinsmore, Rob Conway, all of these guys were already under developmental contract at the time. Um, not What's the guy name that was with Sean Davari? He taught me the backdrop.
Muhammad Hassan?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of Mark Magnus.
Yeah.
That was his name in OVW.
Yeah.
And he was so I love that dude. And he used to take the most impressive high back body drops that you would ever see, and he taught me how to do them. And that was part of the training, man. Those backdrops, the countless hours with Rip Rogers, and doing the same thing every day, over and over and over again. Like, bro, let's do something else. Nope. You do an hour, 2 hours of just chain wrestling and switching, and that is what prepared guys to understand wrestling. It's not just about going in and doing the moves. Rip, Jim Cornette,
Psychology.
Danny Davis taught psychology. So now that you got all of this, now this week you're going to do some chain wrestling, and then we're going to translate or transition to this spot. Let's do what they call, cross body spot. Out of chain wrestling, shoot off, duck one, duck two, come off with a cross body. Just simple stuff so you understand the psychology and how to build a match. And those guys were great. The only backdrop I've ever taken, ever, through all of my time on national television was Ric Flair on ECW when I wrestled Ric Flair. That's the only backdrop I've ever taken. And I took it like Ric Flair. Because when you're wrestling so many, I took it to the side.
Yeah.
Because Ric Flair gave it to me. I didn't know I was going to take a back body drop. It was like he told me to take one, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason being is when you're wrestling so many different people, your spine, that's your lifeline. That's your life source. You mess that up, you're done. Your neck, you land wrong. Obviously, as we've seen time and time again, look at Robert Roode. Look at Jason Jordan. You're just done. There's nothing more you can do. So all it takes is one offbeat moment, too sweaty. It could be a number of things. A guy over rotates you, and you're done. So every time that we're in the ring, yes, we put our trust in our partner, our opponent, who we're in the ring with. But that's something that sometimes you just can't control. And so I just chose to avoid that at all costs.
Got to play it safe as best as you can.
Mm-hmm. So what I would do is if I had to go up and down, I would take the flapjack, where you raise me up and I just come down to my stomach instead of my back. That's what a flapjack is.
Sure. Now you get called up to the main roster of WWE. You get called up to the main roster, and you're paired with Sylvester Terkay. I remember watching you at that time with him. What was it like being paired up together?
It was great. I actually was called up previously with the Spirit Squad.
That's right. I remember hearing about that.
And I turned that down and call a lot of heat for that. But go ahead.
Why did you turn it down?
Where are the members of the Spirit Squad at today?
That's right. It's true. Only one remains.
Only one, and that was Dolph.
Yeah.
He went back to developmental FCW. He put the work in. And finally got a new character. And Dolph is so good that
really
his talent couldn't be denied anyway. So, but yeah, I didn't want to be. Again, Vince said, "You're going to make a lot of money. It's my idea," and immediately they were thrust. I said it was just 4 of us at first. I said no, and 2 other people got the opportunity: Mike Mondo and Jeter. So, hey, they made a lot of money instantly, but their run was what, a year, maybe, and then they got put in the box and shipped back down to OVW. But I went up. So Vince told me, hey, don't worry. I respect that. We'll bring you back up when we got something for you. That was Sylvester Terkay. I love Terkay. He was a great guy. He was being built for The Undertaker, WrestleMania. I wish that would have happened, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen. But I stayed the course. A lot of guys were fearful of Terkay because Terkay was a shoot MMA guy, much like I was boxing. That's why they put us together. And when you were in the ring with Terkay, a lot of people felt it. So all of a sudden, Terkay's supposed to go against Rey Mysterio, and they changed it to Rey Mysterio on SmackDown versus Elijah Burke. And that's how the Elijah Burke in wrestling form took off up in WWE.
Yeah, I mean, you did stuff with the New Breed on ECW. That was a really cool faction. I enjoyed that. And you hold the distinction of being the final opponent for Chris Benoit before the tragedy.
I would not call that a distinction. Obviously, it is. And none. But I will say it was an honor. It was an honor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out like the right word for it, depending on because of the circumstance.
Well, I mean, I think you're still correct in saying that because it is. I mean, unfortunately, I think it's an unfortunate distinction of being the last one to wrestle Chris Benoit, and it was, you know, what happened afterwards aside, it was a highlight of my time there.
What was kind of going through your mind that day, that you got to wrestle him, and then later that week when you hear the news, because that was just devastating. It
Yeah,
shocked the whole locker room.
well, it was devastating to me because I had formed a great um, bond and friendship with Chris, and by no means on the level of Chavo Guerrero or Eddie or not like that. Obviously, those guys had been there, but Chris came over to ECW, and he's going to take me under his wing. That's why, initially he didn't want to come. He felt, like he was big, like a lot of them did. I don't know, it's a demotion or whatever. Like, nah, bro. And he said that he wanted to come over and he wanted to help elevate me. And so we formed a bond. I remember when I saw the photos of the aftermath of the things that happened. If you ever seen the photos, as far as in the book, I read the book of Chris and Nancy.
Yeah.
You'll see on his desk the Fred Sanford season 1 and season 2 DVD collection. I don't know if you know Fred Sanford, Sanford's son.
Yes, yes.
Chris Benoit was such a huge fan, and I got that for him on his birthday. I pulled him in
Wow.
the stand, gave it to him, just between me and him. And the dude broke down crying. He was that embarrassed that I remembered his birthday. That weekend leading um, into that event, I wrestled into that last match. I was paired with Chris Benoit, and we were in Georgia, and before going to North Carolina, I think that was the last match. We were in Georgia, and there's Nancy, and there's David, and I'm chasing David around. Every time I saw a woman, as I like to call it, and when I see her, I go, woman, oh woman, won't you marry me now? That's what Clara did. But she was so cool to me too, and everything just seemed unreal when that moment finally happened. Because it did not, none of that showed, to the naked eye.
I remember when Eddie Guerrero had passed away like a couple of years before that, Chris was just in tears. Everybody was upset when Eddie died.
Everybody was upset when Chris and Nancy and
Yeah.
all of them died.
Yeah.
I don't think we even knew when the news broke, we didn't know that Nancy and David was gone. We just knew Chris had passed.
It was actually Daniel. His son's name was Daniel.
Daniel, thank you. So yeah, little Daniel. So David's the older boy, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that, David. But yeah, Daniel. So we're just thinking that Chris has passed. We don't even know anything about the others. Not that I remember. So it was a real unfortunate thing, and it just tore the whole locker room up. We were in Texas, and we were all called out there. And remember, this was during probably one of the craziest storylines that Vince has ever had, where Vince McMahon dies and gets exploded in the limousine. So it was very eerie. It was because that day was supposed to be the funeral of Vince McMahon. We all were going in looking at a quote unquote casket for Vince McMahon, who had just exploded the previous week. And that's the same day that the news break about Chris Benoit.
I remember when I turned on Raw that night, expecting that tribute show for Vince, for Mr. McMahon, and just seeing like a graphic go up that says in memory of Chris Benoit, I was like, wow. I was like shocked. Did you guys know how far in advance, how soon in advance did you guys know that he died before you guys went on the air?
The day of the show.
Like at what hour?
Again, it had to be around maybe around about 4:00. We're in Texas, so maybe around about 4:00 they bring us all together. Maybe 2:00. Might be more accurate. That's when the news had broke, and we all they gathered us all together, and we had a meeting, and they broke the news.
Because that show was supposed to be, full of people, and they just closed down the whole arena just to hold the tribute show.
Exactly. The reason they went black, as you were referring to, that's what I called it, going black. With everything that they had planned, with all the people that they had, the reason being is because it was such an emotional time, Stanley. And out of respect to the talent that Benoit was, they gave everyone the opportunity to leave, stay or leave. I mean, it was that challenging. So a lot of people left, and because Vince had made the determination that it will be a Chris Benoit tribute show, and obviously when more things came to light, the very next day, I believe on ECW, that's when, and certainly on SmackDown, I remember it. Vince acknowledged that all things would be pulled due to the lack of information, that his name would never be mentioned again on that programming.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just sad to hear that. And sad to hear about everything that went down. Just horrifying.
Yeah, it is. And obviously there's so many, even to this day, so many conspiracy theories, but that's with everything. But my thoughts, again, I've talked about this well back when, just one time only on my own podcast, but my thoughts and prayers are obviously with everybody involved. To those who lost their lives unjustly, unfairly, and you don't want to think it, but it is what it is, and we just learn from it and move forward.
That's what you got to do.
I will say this. I do remember before the show, Benoit making it a request to me, and this is something that I've always done and do, and that is talk, because he did say he have a hard time remembering things, or sometimes he forget, whatever the case may be. I want to test that to anything. It could be due to a number of things. It could have been from chair shots. It could have been from, substance abuse. It could have been anything. And I don't know that, but I do remember him saying that, just talk to. I have a hard time remembering things. And then they said his brain was that of an 80-year-old or worse. That's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
And his heart was what? The doctors said that if he didn't, if that didn't happen, even,
he would have died even later too.
Not that much later, he would have passed, because his heart was like 4 times the normal size.
You were in WWE for about another year before you got released. Any other stories you want to tell about your time there that were fun?
Obviously, you mentioned the New Breed. You mentioned, leading up that group, and us, me still getting to WrestleMania, even though Turkai wasn't there, and You know, the couple of WrestleManias I was in, well, they were tremendous moments. You know, being there when Ric Flair retired his first time, and just working under. You talked about my childhood heroes, and then I got to work with them. I
Yeah.
got to, Dusty Rhodes literally knew me before I even met him. How's that? How's that? For a little black Afro-headed kid coming from Jacksonville, Florida, get up and I walk into this huge Coliseum backstage, and here's Dusty walking in his ostrich cowboy boots that he loved to wear, and his jeans and his shirt tucked in, and he comes walking, and I freeze, and all of a sudden, like, there's the dream. It's my first time for to meet him, and I stick my hand out and go, "Hey, how you doing, Dream?" I'm Elijah Burke, and he slaps my hand away, and he goes, "Boy, I already know who you are, boy. Say we're gonna make a lot of money together. Go put your stuff down and come find me." How's that for a turnabout, man?
It's almost like at that point, even though your career just got started, it's like it came full circle at that point. That was like a full circle moment.
Absolutely. And then
Yeah.
when I got a chance to wrestle Ric Flair, and it just so happens, I'm on the losing end with Flair tapping me out to his figure four en route to that WrestleMania 24. Like, man, so my time in WWE was great.
Yeah. I think so too, And you got to TNA, you came up with this wonderful character called the Pope, D'Angelo Dinero. How did that come about?
Well, it came about because before I got injured, and by injured, it wasn't a bad injury, but anytime you had any type of injury and they have plans for you, they want to protect you. So I was on the sidelines in WWE for those final few months, and rest of my last match with actually a touch of pneumonia against Matt Hardy on SmackDown.
Hmm.
And I had an ankle injury or twisted my ankle or something at some point. And when I was off for a couple of weeks or so, or three, maybe a month, I decided to, hey, I'm off TV. I want to come back. I want to do something different. It's time for a change. And so I wanted to do the Black Pope character. And and the reason the Black Pope character came to be is because I used to do a column on WWE.com, and obviously when I came and I out, you'll see in SmackDown versus Raw video games, you'll see the signs, Guide and Light. You'll see the signs, Paragon of Virtue, Host of Hosts, whatever. So I would refer to myself as that whenever I would write the stories that I would write for WWE.com. I actually did them, and WWE likes to um, weed out your emails. They'll handle that stuff for you. But I actually gave my own email that I use to this day.
Hmm.
I gave it, and I wanted to deal with the people. I didn't want them to deal with somebody like you that is representing and acting as me. And so while I was doing that, these people actually, even though I was a bad guy, they will talk to me about their problems, or they'll say how I helped them and how I inspired them. And so I started referring to them as my congregation. Long story short, if they're my congregation, well, who am I? I got to be something besides Elijah Burke. And I tried to think of the first. There were already reverends, there had already been deacons, there had already been, this, that, and the other. And I was like, what can I be to this congregation? And I said, well, you know what? There's never been a black pope. And so, therefore, that's how the Black Pope character came to be. I actually had it sprouted upon me in Los Angeles. Hey, you're going to be Pope. You got your stuff? Like, what? Like, so for people to think WWE has it all together, I show up. And in that moment, they say, you're going to be Pope. I don't have nothing. I wrestled Jim and Wang Yang. I had to leave to go to the store to get all black pants, white boots, black pants, black tank top. Got a pimp cup because that was the basis of the Black Pope character. But anyways, yeah. So I was gonna do that in WWE, and they wanted me to be they WWE likes to take your ideas and make it something different.
Yeah,
They want to, they're going far out, like televangelist type stuff.
sure.
And I don't think religion should be mixed in anything because I respect it too much. Not religion per se, but I respect other people's view of what they call religion.
Right.
And I don't think it should be mixed. If people want to go to church, they'll go to church. They're not going to come to wrestling for church. And so I didn't want to make a mockery of that. And so lo and behold, I get sent out there, and I did get a chance, but there was some back push for me as well because hey, you're not listening. This is what the character is. I get the TNA Vince Russo. Shout out to Vince, because he gave me full leeway to do what I want to do. Vince, they were going to bring me as Elijah Burke to TNA, obviously, and you want to capitalize off the name that I already have stock. I say, Vince, take this disc, go back. There's 4 minutes. Watch the Pope character. I did this thing when I went to OVW. I did this whole 4 minute film, promo package of Pope from entrance to in ring. Vince comes back. He comes power walking. He goes, bro, you have to forget about Elijah Burke, bro. You have to be the Pope. Because the Pope is money, bro. The Pope is money. As a matter of fact, I already got the name, bro. D'Angelo De Niro, because the Pope is money. So this came up with D'Angelo De Niro.
It's a pretty cool gimmick. Absolutely fantastic. And the way you're able to pull that off is just spectacular.
I appreciate that. That was just, again, while a lot of people have success in characters that are basically not an extension of themselves, well, that's an extension of who I am. That's why I'm Pope to this day. It's just me turned up. And anytime that I want to tap into it, Daddy, I do it.
Let's switch gears now. Let's talk about the charity work that you've done outside of wrestling. What organizations have you worked with over the years?
As you're talking wrestling or my charity?
Charity.
Well, my charity is an organization in and of itself. So what I do with my charity is I focus on the community in the impoverished communities in and around Jacksonville, Florida, whether that be the homeless, whether that be the sheltered individuals, women in the women's shelters, we just and then the troubled youth and youth in general. It's something that is near and dear to my heart because obviously I grew up witnessing homelessness in a great form in and around Jacksonville, Florida, walking to the grocery store as a kid, and when you have people that are sleeping on the sidewalk and they're asking a kid for a quarter or 50 cents. So I basically took it upon myself to do what a lot of well-established organizations or prominent individuals within our community refuse to do, unless there's a national disaster or something in which they can be, um, you know, shown on the news or, you know what I'm saying?
Make public.
Make public, used as a write-off or something to say,
Right.
well, look what this great guy's doing. And man, listen, the amount of homeless people, the amount of people that are displaced from their homes at no reason, no cause of their own. Some people are in shelters, women are in shelters because they took their children and said, I want to get out of an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of staying at home and we have nowhere to go, we're going to the shelter. Some people are on the street. I don't care how bad they may look, how drunk they may be. They're on the streets because they made bad decisions. And those bad decisions for some could be they didn't have the money or wherewithal to buy home insurance. And their home is destroyed because a tree fell on it. And they have no place to live and the house got condemned. Some are, and these are true stories. Some are there because their house caught fire, and they don't have no family to take them in. Where do they go? And then some don't want to be in the shelters because they're being bullied. Shelters are like jail in some places. So instead of being restricted, being treated like a kid, or being treated less than a kid, they decide to go to the street. And the next time you guys possibly see something, and I'm going to give you the name of my chair and all that in a second, but the next time you see an individual and you go, I'm not going to give them my dollar, I'm not going to give them $2, they're just going to go, get a beer. Well, ask yourself this. There are guys that are in greater positions than you and I, Stanley, and even though they got money, after they've dealt with certain situations in their life, or they are dealing with stressful situations in their life, what are they doing when they get home? They could be running a Fortune 500 company. What are they doing when they get home? They're drowning themselves in alcohol. Why are they drowning themselves in alcohol, Stanley? Because for them, in that moment, it allows them to escape reality. Now, you can hear my passion coming through. I know you can. It
Yeah.
allows them to escape reality. And one of the things that some of us who don't do that, our escape for reality is to be in the alternate reality. And oftentimes that alternate reality, Stanley, happens for you when? Because you don't drown yourself in alcohol. Your alternate reality comes when? When you are asleep. Then you get to dream and you get to be in another world. So when these people that we are so quick to judge because they're a drunkard and they're on the street, well, the reason a lot of them are in that position, they say, I'm on the street, man. I got no family. I seemingly have no hope. If I'm going to drown myself in this alcohol, because at least then, even though I'm covered in dirt, even though I smell like a skunk, even though I look, you know, worse than I've ever looked in my life, when I'm in this altered state, I see roses, I see butterflies, I'm a millionaire, I'm this, that, and the other. So I share that story, Stanley, often just so people know, don't be so quick to pass judgment.
No, and I like how you use the word alternate reality, because if you see somebody crying for help and you're not doing anything about it, you just kind of have to picture something in your mind and go, what if I did this instead?
Right. And so what I did, because I always put myself in people's position, I try to imagine if it were me, which I hope is never me. Um, One day back in 2011, I went downtown to Burger King. I passed out flyers a couple of days before, just me, myself, and I said, I'm going to feed all of these people that are lined up, over 200 people it was at the time. And I got with Burger King and they prepared meals for me in that moment, and we fed in their field behind Burger King. We fed all of those people Burger King. And that year, I established my charity, and that charity is called the Love Alive Charity. Over at love-alive.org, you can go watch, you can go see the work that I do in the community, whether that's in the schools, whether that's dealing with the homeless. Now it has grown. I am not supported by the government. And by that means I don't get any funds from the government. I started out of my pocket. It continues out of my pocket, and by people like you who have decided that my charity is worth donating to. So just so you guys know, he ain't just talking about my charity just to talk about it. He actually contributed to my charity. And I always tell
I
people that
did.
$1 help makes a difference. Because God knows if I have to continue to do it out of my pocket by myself, then y'all might be doing a GoFundMe for Pope, and we don't want that to happen.
No.
But yeah, so to this day, it's grown by leaps and bounds. It's grown. I have a lot of people from around the world who have taken the moment to contribute. Uh, we don't just feed now, but we clothe. We're in the schools, and we're trying to, and hopefully one day we will get the city. We've been covered on the news multiple times. Such a great thing this young man is doing. But we need more people like you, Stanley, and the people that support the Love Alive charity on the basis. We need you guys because it's 501c3. So anybody that owns a business, if you're listening and you want to give us a grant, you want to support us, you can write it off. We're in Tallahassee. We're 501c3, and we just did we do a couple of annual fundraising events. One is called the Duval Brawl. We do that in January after we feed the homeless. We do it the same day, and we also just did our summer event called the Great American Clash, and we've had guys, whether it's Tyrus, the NWA champion now, whether it's Tom Latimer, who is the television champion right now, whether it's JTG, former Crime Time, Jay Rios, Red Velvet from AEW, Mark Henry, the list goes on. We work with ACW out of Miami, Florida. They provide a lot of talent for us. And we've had Camille, the longest reigning NWA. And
800 days.
800 days. And they come in. Yeah, they come in and they give their time. They give their efforts, and they donate, and they don't ask for a dime, because this is how we are able to raise funds. It's a method that just came to be by the guys that support. Hey, let's do a wrestling event. And that's how it started. And it's just another way, another method for us to raise funds to continue to do what we do with the Love Alive charity.
Oh, man, I just love your passion and everything that you're doing right now for the community. This has been so wonderful getting the chance to talk with you, Elijah. Real quick, where can people find, I know you mentioned the charity already, but where can people find you on social media so that they can know more about you and what you're doing?
Well, again, love-alive.org, that is the charity's website, but you can follow the charity over on the Instagram, as well as Facebook, the Love Alive charity, as well as on Twitter, Love Alive Inc., which is still the Love Alive charity if you put that in. You can follow your boy over on Instagram at The Black Pope. You can follow your boy on Twitter at The Black Pope. That's not The Black Pope, that's D.A. Black Pope, The Black Pope. A little urban there, as well as on Facebook, Elijah Burke. You can find me on Facebook there as well. And then you can hear your boy every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, The Pope's Point of View with Elijah Burke and NWA's talent, Polo Del Mar, or Pollo. I call him Polo. He'll get mad if I say Pollo. But Pollo Del Mar, every Saturday, man, we're lighting up the scene, giving that 45 minutes of fire and then some. So whatever you listen to podcasts, be sure to go like, subscribe, and find out what we have in store for you this coming week.
Awesome. Elijah, it means a lot to me and to the listeners to have you on the show. And I just want to say thank you for everything what you do. And you're more than welcome to come on back.
Hey, thank you, Stanley, for having me. Thank you for supporting the charity. I hope it ain't the last time you do so.
No.
But guys, the next time we be on, we'll condense this. And because Stanley knows my situation right now, I couldn't be on visually. But I like Stanley. I love the podcast. I love the work that he's doing, rather, on his platform. So I'll be sure to come back and we'll show a little skin, if you will.
For sure. Thanks again.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.